What's up, everyone? This is Chris from Peaceful Human Advancement, and I am super excited to chat with you today and share a very powerful insight that I've been getting for quite some time, but I feel called to really speak on it. And that is divine will, truth, the will of truth, the will of God, the will of source, the will of light. And what I'm going to share with you today is how you can align yourself and realize yourself as one with the source, as one with the light. So what is happening, what has happened right now is, as incarnate beings, we have known ourselves through separation consciousness. We have known ourselves as individuals so that we can have a perceived individual experience for our soul's evolution and expansion and growth. That is to say, as I sit here before you in this body, I've had different experiences than you have. But there's one thing that all these experiences, no matter what planet, what star system, what vibration you are emitting from, have in common. All these experiences are the way that source, that wisdom, that truth calls back to it what it truly is, that speaks through you, that speaks through me, that is all things. So in order for me to become realized, I must give up my identity as who I think I am through the limited programming that I've received, through the belief systems that I see peering through every fabric of the civilization of society. I must surrender my lower self and align my lower self to that of the higher will, the will of God, in order for ego to be truly transformed, in order for ego to really be reknown, the ego must have a rebirth. It must be re-identified in spirit. It must be known, reclaimed in truth. So the will of truth claims all to it. It calls all to it. The will of love calls all to it. So as I sit here, the being that you see is not the being that is speaking. The being that you see is, in a sense, the puppet, the vessel through which source moves through. And this is only possible whenever the identity with the form is dropped and we allow what is to be what is. Whenever we allow the ego to be absorbed into its higher functions, okay? So you have the ego self, let's say it's the lower self. You have the true self. Then you have the higher self, right? So the ego cannot know the higher self. It cannot know the true self. The ego can only know itself in separation, because in separation there is no love. The ego only knows itself through history, through the ideas that it has claimed as its identity. The ego only knows itself through the labels. It is a conjured up character that the higher self projects so that it may experience. Okay? So the ego must then, or the identity must be dropped so that it can then be merged and aligned with the higher self. And once we are absorbed into the higher self, to the higher functions of consciousness, we then can merge and unify as one into the true self. The true self is all the selves combined. It is the self. It is the only true self. The higher self is only higher because it is not identifying with the ego. If the higher self were to identify with the ego, there would be no higher self. There would be no aspect of us that knows itself beyond the physical being that we see looking in the mirror. There would be no aspect of us that knows itself beyond the limited belief systems that we have been brought up in our society. There would be no aspect of us that knows itself beyond the emotions, the fear, and the density that we have experienced for the past couple thousand years as a human being, as a human race. So by default, the higher self exists as a point of freedom for the lower self, for the identity of who we think we are. Okay. But how do we get to there? How do we just drop all of these ideas, and how do we drop the fact that we are a father? How do we drop the fact that we are a partner? How do we drop the fact that we are um, whatever we think that we are, in order to merge, in order to unite with our truest self, our essence, our higher self, our higher functioning, that's cool, our higher functioning abilities. So we don't drop per se. We don't drop and forget and run off and pretend it's not there. We don't go off into a mountain and just denounce the whole entire um, world and all the physical stuff. So we don't run away from the kids and the family. What we do is we align. We don't take ourselves as a physical being, as a manifested spirit, so seriously, right? We, instead of projecting our reality through the lens of our structured belief systems, our boxes that we have projected ourselves into, we then carry a vibration of knowing who we truly are. We see ourselves beyond the form. We see ourselves, we know ourselves beyond identity, beyond the box, which is to say, we stop identifying with it. We don't hold so much rigid value around the fact that we have a family, that we have a role, that we have a job, that we have this or that. We allow ourselves to understand the truth, which is that those things are not who we are. Okay? So I say life and light to you all, to keep beaming, keep shining, and thank you so much for all that you do and who you are.